Photography live stream where we talk about photography and gear and the art of photography. And I'll kind of leave this as an open Q&A. If you guys have any questions or have any specific topics you'd like to talk about, let me know as usual. I have not prepared anything for the live stream. I got back late last night. Um, well, early this morning actually. I got home about 1:30, and wow, just woke up maybe an hour ago and got a quick bite to eat. Went out and played with Elliot for a little bit, but went out to uh, what we like to call the truck graveyard, where a bunch of old trucks, tractor trailers and things are all just kind of deteriorating out into a field. And the owner of the property is very kind to just let people go there, with notice, and do photography. So we did some light painting last night. Something I really don't do enough of, and I didn't do a great job, but it was a lot of fun just playing around. And I've updated my Instagram page with some photos from that event, so I'll share some of those today. And let's see, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the techniques I used in the photos, because they're not just straightforward snapshots, right? We're doing live composite, we're doing exposure blending, among other things. And also, let's see, I guess I've updated my deals page for those of you that follow my other live stream about doing getting good deals on photography gear and accessories in particular. I um, I added a couple of new categories. One specifically for like computers and laptop accessories, uh, to really enhance your photography editing specifically, because a lot of people, you're still using, older laptops and stuff, and that's fine. But to take advantage of the uh, software out there that has all these denoising algorithms, you really need a more powerful computer. Just to give you an example, a friend of mine here in the photo club, they use DxO, based on my recommendation, right? And it takes them 15 minutes to denoise an image in D prime, one image. Whereas on my computer, it takes like 10 seconds. It's like a huge, huge difference. And their computer is only a couple of years old. It's not an old computer, but it's not spec'd properly for photo editing. Uh, it doesn't have like the dedicated GPU or graphical processing unit or video card, however you want to call it, for that can help really speed up the processing of these new AI quote unquote type algorithms for denoising and for many other things that we see now that are AI related to photography, which I'm starting to incorporate a little bit in my own photography. Not to the extent that like I'm making full on movies, uh, all from AI or completely changing the image, but just cleaning up like a corner or removing something out of the frame that normally isn't there. For example, if there's a person standing there, like in somewhere in the frame, and they're not normally there, it's because I go out with a group usually on a lot of these photos that you see, and but I try not to remove things that would normally be there. Power lines, for example, or trash that might be laying around. Uh, more permanent trash, not like a paper cup or something. I'd probably remove that. But yeah, so AI is really good at making very subtle changes to your images that I think are fair. Um, I think Thomas Heaton did a video on this about he used to like removing power lines and sticks, distractions, things like that. And he's contemplating, I guess, not doing that as much as he used to, which I think is really the right direction to uh, the more purist type photography. do whatever you want. It's your art, right? Um, if you don't like the power lines in the shot, just take them out. It's there's no right or wrong to this. It's what your vision is of the scene and how you want to edit it to make it yours, right? But I'm a little bit more of a purist. Uh, I like to do my best and challenge myself to compose the scene so that all of the elements in the scene are there for a reason. So if there is some trash or debris in the scene, I think it helps tell part of the story, and I try to make that part of the composition the best I can. So that said, I put several different laptops in the deal page or in a separate category, and so if you're thinking about upgrading your computer, I got options in there that start like at $1,000, $1,100 that will make a significant difference from the computer you're having. And I may have Marco come back on and we'll do another live stream about computers because there's a lot of deals coming up for Black Friday. And uh, it's as good a time as any to get a new laptop or upgrade your laptop without spending a fortune. I mean, not that $1,000 is a small amount of money, but it's probably a better investment in some situations than maybe buying a lens even, right? Because if your workflow is bogged down, when you get back home to edit your photos, uh, and assuming you like to edit your photos, some people they just do straight out of camera JPEGs, and that's fine. Then you don't need to upgrade a computer for that. So we'll talk about that more in the future episode. And but yeah, wow, that was a long drive. So I see David's here. Thanks for driving, Dave. I appreciate that. God, I took a nap. Got this crick in my neck from falling asleep because it was a little over like 2.5 hour drive each way. And I'm not a night owl. I like to go to bed at like 9 o'clock. And man, we were shooting up until like 9:30, almost 10 o'clock, doing this light painting. So there's that. So let me check in who's here. I see Jeff here, Eric, good to see you guys. The Great Vanzini, Jan Garcia, good to see you. And Osman, awesome. And yeah, I'm sorry for my attire. I'd like to at least put a collared shirt on, but like I said, I just woke up like an hour ago and I'm still a little bit groggy. I normally wake up uh, like 4 hours before I did today, which in my time zone would be like 5 a.m. But I didn't wake up till like 8 or 9 o'clock, something like that, um, which I sorely needed. But I did that to so I could stay up later last night. But your body just gets into this like circadian rhythm, and uh, it's hard. But the excitement of photographing it, while I'm in the field, I feel really good. But then as soon as I sit down, like back in the car, it's like, oh, it kind of hits you, right? And Shri, good to see you. Oh, Shri, yeah. Shri was out there last night with us, and he was capturing the comet. It's funny. I didn't have that much interest in capturing the comet so much, but because I didn't have a long lens with me. Not that you needed one. Really, a 40 millimeter on micro four thirds would do it uh, to catch the entire trail anyway, along with a little bit of the sky. Um, but there's, in the OM1, it's a little tricky to get the starry sky AF and stuff to catch on to a star. So, uh, if you're a little frustrated with starry sky AF, make sure you put the focus point, into a small focus point, not tiny, but, just square, and put that over a star, the brightest star, ideally, in the sky. and then do the Starry Sky F, and it should latch on within 30 seconds. And it does a great job. Uh, Here in my light polluted backyard, I struggle with Starry Sky AF because it's just not enough contrast in the sky. Not that there's much to see here because I got so many trees and everything. But okay, Semjon says I still use my phone for editing, and it's a pain. Well, let me pull up the chat window. Otherwise, I'm going to get lost. Uh, Really need to upgrade to a laptop soon, especially for AI denoise and birding and low light like yesterday with my new 100 to 400. Oh, congrats on your new lens. It's a great lens. Um, yeah, I think definitely, uh, editing on the phone is fine, but the screen is so small. I mean, everybody has their own workflow, and if phone works for you, that's fine. But I like to have a big screen. So I have a laptop with a 32-inch monitor attached so that I can, have a nice big screen to edit on. Okay, and Tan van Bruchem looks like from the Netherlands. Nice, good to see you. And Eric says Windows 95 would be hilarious editing these days. I don't even know if half the software, even the free ones, will work on Windows 95. Wow. Um, but yeah, Windows 95, those were the days. And Simjon says, I saw the picture with the car on Instagram. You always say you're not a creative person, but then you post something cool. Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm really hard on myself because my expectations are so high, and I'm always comparing myself to the masters, like the great photographers out there. And it's a little bit hard because I'm just as hard with anyone that asks me about their pictures a lot of times. And I feel bad because it's like I look at like because a lot of people are just getting started. They love photography, they have a passion, and I I make the mistake of like not really showing my enthusiasm that they had about the same picture, right? That they took. Uh, but at the same time, I try to be complimentary because people that have like the Shutterbug, they get the bug for photography. They do see a lot of things, and they take pictures of them, right? They see a lot of great things, and they take a picture of that great thing. Uh, but it's not quite. It's still kind of like snapshot level, like anybody could have took that shot of that thing. And I'm trying to figure out a way to articulate how to compose an image and tell that story. Uh, at least this is how I try to photograph things. I try to uh, tell a story in the shot. And a lot of the pictures I took yesterday were really just snapshots. I when I'm out with a group, half my energy is to uh, helping and guiding other people, whether it's to a specific location where there's some interesting things to take a picture of, or helping them with their camera or settings. And then the other half of my energy is to my own photography and trying to get a few shots. And so I never do great on the photo walks of in my own photography. I do my best when I'm alone, and I can just concentrate on exactly what I want to do with a particular scene that's in front of me and what elements I want to include or not include. And those are the images that I like the most from my photos. Uh, but at the same time, I'm not particularly proud of them either, even though they're probably some of the best things I've ever done for me. I'm still aspiring to do better, right? To really make an iconic or like just a wow image, right? And I don't feel like I'm there yet. I'm far from it. And part of that journey is also trying to develop your own style, because a lot of photos I'm starting to get a little bit more of my into my own style, but I'm not quite there yet. And a lot of the photos I take, they're just sort of like anyone could take, you know. If they see the same thing I do, they'll take it, right? But well, we'll get into some photos that I took. And I'll tell you what I like or dislike. But I'd like to. A lot of the photos I take are more for educational type purposes as well. So I'll take a photo because I want to illustrate a particular technique or a particular composition. They're not necessarily an epic photo, right? They're just snapshots for educational purposes. So a lot of the images you see on my Flickr and Instagram, they're okay. They're not great photos, but they do illustrate maybe a particular technique or a particular function of the camera, or so that you can use that image as an example in your own photography. Uh, but then, of course, make it your own, right? Um, so, and that's always been my primary goal for most of my photography, is to to feature something. It's for an educational purpose. It's not so much for the art of photography, and that's why a lot of the images you see, and it's fair criticism that I'm sort of a mediocre photographer, right? Um, but I think context of the images that I post on my Flickr and Instagram have to be taken into account as part of that. And one day I'll make a website with like a portfolio of images that I think are mine, so to speak, and my style and my vibes or whatever, or my art of photography. And I'll do that one day. I've only been shooting since 2013, really, so 11 years now. So I got a long way to go, as I think all of us do. It's really a lifetime journey. Um, and the great Vanzini says, "Do you think I need to move on from Windows 7? Only if you want to use the latest software. If what you're using now is fine, then don't worry about it." Uh, Windows 7 was a great operating system, and when Windows or Microsoft went to Windows 8, uh, it's a bumpy ride at first, but I really liked Windows 8, and I like where Windows now 11 is now, and all the things that we can do with it. But Windows 7 is more of a it's a little bit more raw, right? It's not it's not quite as polished as, say, Windows 11. And in that respect, it is faster, I think, and generally uses less resources on the computer. And you can use older computers with Windows 7 and still get a lot done, right? Very efficiently. But, you know, I think a lot of software will only work on like Windows 10 now. Um, I mean, don't quote me on that, but it's, it's something to do with, it's a little bit out of my scope of my knowledge here on operating systems, but there's been a lot of advances to take advantage of all the new hardware that's in our computers, and specifically security, right? People being able to hack into your computer. Windows 7 is no longer updated from a security standpoint, um, and you could be vulnerable to different types of hackers and things like that. So if you're if you should upgrade from Windows 7, it should be, even if it's just for having a higher security, that would be enough reason right there. But I don't know how much you go online and interact with different websites and stuff. um, but security is a big concern these days. And let's see. Oh, Alan just got a new Pen F. Nice. The script F. Oh, so you got the F embossed on the front? Or it has the script F. That is sweet. I wish they would have done that, straight out of the factory, right? Uh, it's not a special edition. I don't believe. I believe that was done after the fact. I don't think they ever produced one with the F on it. Now, if someone knows otherwise, please leave it in the chat section. But as far as I know, that's always been applied after the fact. But that's a sweet deal, and a handful of people did it. Uh, yeah, the 100 to 400. Yep, I know which one that is. It's very good lens. And let's see. Oh, Marco's in the house. Hey, Marco, how you doing? Yeah, so maybe Marco, we should. Well, I'll email you. We should get together and do another live stream here before the Black Friday, so we can get some good deals for our viewers on entry level laptops that'll get us like 80%, 90% there for editing and stuff, and then people that want high end, right? And then Semjon says, I often miss opportunities on the street because I think it might just look like a snapshot and not interesting. There's a fine balance between taking too much and too little. Absolutely. But I would encourage you to lean on the side of taking too many. And, especially now if you're still not sure of your own photography, take a lot and then procure them, vet them in your photo editing software to the ones that you like the most, and try and figure out what it is you like about that photo, and uh, learn from your own photography, right? There's no better teacher than yourself, right? Looking within, and that's where your photography will uh, be different and separate from other people. So because we can look to and get inspiration from other photographers, but I would argue uh, a lot of times you just end up copying them, and it's better to take more photos, look at your own photography, pick the ones that you like in your own photography, and then incorporate that, right? Look within, look at your own photography to come up with your own style. Let me go grab Ellie. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the mic, but Ellie, come here, baby. What are you barking at? Okay, that's a good girl. Yes, you my baby girl. You are. Okay, there we go. No more distractions for now. And Ken Cox, good to see you from Ireland, and the great Vanzini. And I feel like I've gone backward. It all seems like snapshots in my older years, but I'm okay with it. Yeah, I feel the same way sometimes. Like I'll come back from a photo walk and I'm like, what are these pictures? What what am I doing? I'm going backwards because I'll look back at some of my old pictures. I'm like, man, that was amazing. How come I'm not taking pictures like this anymore? And Marcia's here. Good to see you. Hopefully everything is okay in Florida. And once in 80,000 years, Comet, you did get some great astro photos in your backyard. I need to work on it as well. Don't want to spend more on a tracker and stuff. Yeah, well, sure, a tracker you can get for $300-400, and that's a lot less than some of the lenses you've bought, right? So look at it that way. It's hard, when you look at a lens, you're like, okay, 400, 500, $1,000, $2,000. It seems easy to justify, right? And it really shouldn't be. But there's other photography accessories if you want to get into it that are a lot less expensive than a good lens that will expand your photography a lot more than any lens would. And a tracker is definitely one of those things if you want to get into astro. Winter's coming, so I need to get back into astro again because the winter sky here in the northern hemisphere is really the best time to do astrophotography. Primarily because the nights are longer and there's more subjects in the sky to get. And then Alan says, in reference to computers, if you want to run current photo software, don't get a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip. Noise reduction software barely works and Topaz won't even load. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I guess there's some computers coming out with Snapdragon CPUs now. That's just weird to me. And okay, great. That's awesome, Marco. Well, I'll give some thought about a date and we'll put something together. And then check out the Dell refurbished deals. They have some good deals, usually sell leased out laptops with higher end configuration. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, always try to get used or refurbished directly from the manufacturer, and you can usually get a good deal. Ellie dogging got your dog barking. That's hilarious. Ellie's pretty immune to barking on the screen because I watch a lot of videos with dogs barking in them for whatever reason. And it's her ears might go up a little bit, but she doesn't really pay much attention to the television. Um, unless it's a siren. Sirens just get her no matter what the source is, either real or, you know, on TV. Okay, so let's look at some pictures and I'll talk about them a little bit because you can just go to my Instagram and see them. But let me just pull up the editing software so you can see the raw image and a little bit about how I process them. I think that would be more useful. And there's a comment here. Paul says the Move Shoot Move is reasonably priced around 300 and really portable for backpacking. Shot the Comet last night. Torture tested at 30-second exposure. Nice. I'm not familiar with that device. I've heard, I'm aware of it, but I'm not familiar with how it works. But I think it's more of a, yeah, it's a tracker, but I'm not that familiar with that one. I have uh, I can't even remember the name. I have a different one. Okay, let me see if I can share this screen. Okay, so these are the straight out of camera JPEGs up here. More or less, if it says JPEG. Let me get the chat window out just for a moment. So, yeah, these first few shots, I'm just kind of warming up. This is the OM1 with the 25 millimeter f1.4 Leica, and I'm just kind of warming up. Let me bring this down. So I just took a few snapshots with the camera. But this is where we got into light painting. I use my Sony camera for a lot of the first shots that because I'm testing out a lens for reviews. So I've been bringing it with me the last couple of months, taking pictures with it. But these are the ones with the OM1. So let me just get into this first shot. This shot is uh, two shots that I blended together. And this here is the moon. So if you look carefully, you can tell this is a blended shot because the depth of field is weird, right? Because we got something sharp here, then it's blurry here because of the shallow depth of field, and then we're sharp again because on the first image I took of the moon, I focused back here on the landscape, and then the second image I focused here on the truck. So But this is the final image. So let me show you the two images that I combined together. It was this one, I think. Well, yeah, it's this one. So this is the first image. This is the straight out of camera, basically. Uh, and this was an 8-second exposure at ISO 3200. So it's basically pitch black here. And so that's why I need to be at ISO 3200, 8 seconds, f1.4. This almost looks like a sunset, doesn't it? After with this exposure. But this is actually the moon. And the white balance, I don't remember what I did here, white balance wise. Maybe if I double click on it. I mean, it looks like it's just a daylight white balance. Oh, this is the exported TIFF file, but there's been no editing to this image as of yet. And then I blended it with this shot here, where I exposed for the moon. I couldn't get the moon to be where you can see the details of the moon. So it looks like just a little bit bright spot here. But, I didn't want this, right? This huge glow, because this looks like a sunset that's overexposed. This, at least you can see the point of light. Uh, and then I took this into Photoshop. So let's go there. Export to application without processing. Okay. Hopefully oh yeah. So the blending is done here. So here's the first image. And there's the second image. Let me hide this. There's the second image, right? So second image, first image. And then I just applied a little mask here where I used a brush, and I just started brushing things in or out, right? So that's brushing it out versus brushing things in. Oops, the mask over here. Brushing things back in like this. Uh, so you just kind of feather your brushing where you want it to be. Like I could have added a little more light down here if I wanted, but then it looks too bright, right? So that's all I did, those two images, and then I exported it. I was thinking about putting a photo filter on because I wanted to cool it off to make it look like moonlight instead of uh, a sunset. But then this didn't look quite right to me, so I couldn't get the white balance or that look that I wanted. Maybe if I went into levels and did it this way, something like that. But yeah, it didn't work right. And the reason being is because behind me, if you look at the reflection down here, behind me is where the sun was setting. It had already set, but we still got a little bit of glow of warm light coming from behind me. As you can see in the bumper here, the sky is blue, and the reflection in the headlights, there's some yellow. So this was a problem for me, and I need to learn how to deal with this later, problem solve this particular type of exposure where the white balance behind me, the sunset, is yellow, and then the moon in front of me is more daylight, right? Daylight white balance. So there's a mixed white balance here, and that's why in the final image here I decided to go just black and white. Uh, but if I convert this back to color, you can see it just got weird. So I decided to go black and white. Okay. So let me go back to the chat. And if you have any questions about that image, the technique or processing, let me know. But I think I explained that. So 20 degrees Celsius in Winnipeg, Canada. That means I got to get out to shoot pelicans today before the temps drop below zero. Wow. Phew. Man, it's cold. It's getting cold. I hate the winter time. It's great for astrophotography, but I hate it for everything else. And Natura says, "Hey, hi everyone. It's a rather sad day in that I've sold 95% of my Micro Four Thirds gear. And why? Because Panasonic and OMDs haven't come out with any real replacement of a small Micro Four Third camera with modern specs. Still have a GH2. Okay. So I would assume you replaced it with something that was um, that you like better. I don't know. For me, I I'm in the camp where if the camera still works and does what I need it to do, I'll just keep using it. AKA like my Olympus Pen F has been awesome for me, and that's a 6-year-old camera. And there's honestly, excuse me, I think I'm getting arthritis in my hips or something because it's hard for me to sit down like I used to during the anyway. Uh, because the way I see it is there really hasn't been specifically advancements in image quality. It's better, but it's not night and day difference for me. Because I try to shoot at base ISO for the most part, and if I need to shoot at higher ISOs where you will see more difference between older cameras and new cameras, I incorporate that into the composition. Like I intentionally, uh, you know, understand that I'm going to lose dynamic range. I may get some chroma and luminance noise, and I expose the image in a way that would take advantage of that or use that as part of the composition. That said, uh, there's a lot of new features, right? Pro capture, it's being incorporated in a lot of new cameras. I mean, a lot of the features Olympus actually had first, but I'm not aware of any features in modern cameras that are not available in OM systems, right? So newer cameras, of course, and this has always been the case since the beginning of Micro Four Thirds. There's always been larger format cameras with more resolution. So if you want more resolution, we have 60 to 100 megapixels now in modern cameras that weren't available, say 5 or 6 years ago, or whatever that time frame is. That you can get now, whereas Micro Four Thirds is really only gone from 12 to 16 to 20 megapixels. Now we have 25. So we're seeing substantial increases in Micro Four Thirds format, but it feels like it pales in comparison to the 60 megapixel sensors. So actually, if you could elaborate a little bit more on what it is that was in a modern camera or an updated camera that you were looking for, that made you sell your Micro Four Thirds gear, I'd be curious. For me, there hasn't really been any reason to sell my gear because it still does what I want it to do. And like I said, I have like this Sony here. This is a 60 megapixel. I look at the Fuji X100, not the X100, whatever, the GFX 100S, because you can get those pretty cheap now, like 3 grand or less or something, right? And you get a huge dynamic range, uh, 16-bit processing, I believe, but whatever it is, but it's a big bulky system and the lenses are really expensive, so I've been holding off on that one. And then of course my OM1 here, which I used last night for the light painting. Now any Micro Four Thirds camera, OM system cameras, most of them will do live composite, which I used. And I'll show you some live composite images. But I chose the OM1 last night for light painting because I know the battery's going to last. Whereas like on my Pen F and my other cameras, they used a smaller battery, and I didn't know how long we'd be shooting, and I didn't want to have to worry about changing the battery, uh, at night when it's really dark. So I took the OM1 specifically because of the battery life, not because the images would be any better than, say, my 10F. Because when I'm in a studio doing indoor type uh, light painting, I'm happy to use any other camera because I can easily change the battery. I'm in a closed environment. I'm not going to lose the battery or drop it on the ground in the dark. I'm indoors, so it's okay. But outdoors, the OM1 makes more sense. Uh, like I couldn't find my Godox flash. I brought flashes with me. I couldn't find my Godox flash for like 10 minutes, and it turns out I put it back in my bag. I should have looked there first, right? I put it back in my bag. Um, but yeah, so for me, a lot of times the even my EM10 Mark II, it's kind of almost dead now, but uh, that would still perform and do everything I need it to do, even professionally in my for my architectural type photography. I could use that camera. I have a job coming up on Tuesday that I don't need the OM1 or any other camera. I can still use my EM10 Mark II because the workflow on that is pretty good because you're able to program the mode dial to change from custom 1, custom 2, which is what I do in my pro work, is I switch between C1, C2, C3, uh, on every shot basically that I do in my architectural photography. uh, and the image quality is fine because I end up delivering like 2, maybe 3 megapixel images to the client because they're just putting them on their website, and there's no point to have higher resolution. And because I'm bracketing and using flash, I'm always at base ISO on my images. Depending on the scene, typically I'm at base ISO, and with a little noise reduction, there's zero noise in the images. And the dynamic range is fine because I'm exposure blending, like I just showed you with that truck, where there was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, what, 2, 4, 8, so 3 stops there plus 4, 8, 16, 32, 4 stops. So that image of the truck that I showed you, um, this one, there's a 7-stop difference between this exposure and this exposure. 7 stops. And I think it's this image. I tried to use a single image to instead of exposure blending. So this is actually a single image. If we compare this to the original, this is the same. This is the 8-second exposure at ISO 200. I was still able to recover quite a bit, but the problem I had with this image was the front was blurry. I did not because it was so dark, I shot wide open at f1.4, and I didn't want to be standing there for a couple of minutes for one exposure because there's just too many variables in a couple of minutes. The grass could move because there's a little bit of a breeze, and that would cause some motion blur. There's a lot of reasons I didn't want to use really too long of an exposure, so that's why I shot, uh, at f1.4. But then that destroyed my depth of field, and now I'm here with a blurry truck. So that's why I took another exposure um, and focused on the front. Anyhow, uh, what was I talking about? I don't know. I was talking about the difference in exposure. Now I don't know why I brought that up. Anyway, we'll move on. And yeah, I don't worry about the noise anymore. As Photoshop is very good at reducing it. Had very clean fashion show images from as high as 12,000. Yeah, I mean, if you don't need the dynamic range that base ISO would give you, which is only a couple of stops difference between, say, ISO 200 and ISO 12,000 in practice, then, you know, yeah, I've cleaned up ISO 12,000 images with no problem. A lot of my bird shots are like 6,000, 12,000 ISO. And I can clean them up and still get plenty of detail in the wings and the feathers and things. Um, Peter said, I came across an old memory stick, 64 meg Magic Gate. Wow. Any thoughts on recovering the images? I think it's from around 2005. I would try Recuva. I'll put it, spell it down here. But if you Google Recuva, you'll come up with uh, it's able to recover files. It does a pretty good job. I've used it many times. I used it actually just the other day to recover some files. Um, but that's a good software. And Wayne is in the house. Good to see you. And oh, Walter dropped in and dropped out. Well, I'm glad you're able to make it in, even if just for a few minutes. I'm sorry I missed you, Walter. Uh, so Walter says adjust the single color channel in levels or curves to give the blended moon and truck image color cast. I could do that, but it, like I said, because there's a zone, there's an area within where the color cast kind of overlaps, and it would just kind of look weird. I've tried that before. Maybe I need to practice some more with that. I've tried that though to reduce uh, color cast, and I have very specific techniques that I use in my architectural photography that I try to apply to my other photography, but it doesn't really work quite as well because color cast, I'm typically trying to reduce off white walls, right? And um, I don't have to be, well, typically it's a white wall that has a color cast on it, right? Where it's a little bit like orange. Typically it's like wood floors and wood cabinets. There's like this orange glow all over the place in different parts, and it's easy to remove color cast from, say, a white image, but removing color cast from grass and foliage and, you know, other objects, you reduce, you're pulling colors away that should be there to begin with, and then the grass starts to look too blue or it looks too purple, you know, whatever. The grass and foliage or certain things in the scene start to look weird when you try to remove color cast. Um, so this technique is probably the way to go. I haven't practiced enough with it, but my my attempts at doing it this way have failed, and it made the scene look very unnatural, right? Because you know, if I'm trying to remove sort of a yellow cast, like that was in this truck image, there's a lot of yellow in the grass, and removing the color cast that way was made the grass look weird, right? Made it look just weird, too blue. And then if I tried to remove the magenta, right, and the reds, then the truck lost its color because the truck is kind of a red, and it had red seats. So yeah, I tried to do that, but it didn't work out for me. So I could do with local adjustments, and but then we're getting into so much editing for a single image that honestly it didn't look so bad in black and white. So I just got a little bit lazy. I don't like to spend more than like 10 minutes on an image. If I'm spending more than 10 minutes on an image and it's a single or double exposure, that's too long. I just don't have patience. Unless there's some, you know, unless I'm, you know, if I'm doing experimenting stuff, yeah, of course I'm going to spend whatever it takes to get the technique down. But generally speaking, a lot of images, 5, 10 minutes and I'm done. And I'm always the first one to post images in the photo club. I can count on one hand how many times somebody posted an image before me. Uh, so and that's partially because when I come home, I don't have kids and a wife and things to do when I get home, right? It's like I come home, I can just sit down and start editing, other than take care of Ellie first. But I can, that doesn't take that long, right? I can start editing right away. So I have a big advantage in that sense, being single, right? Uh, okay. Has anyone done Hallows Eve imagery? Just a Phantom of the Opera? Oh no, I have not done anything. It's coming around the corner. I should schedule a photo walk in Old Town. There's a lot of nice decorations in Old Town this time of year. And the only thing I don't like about the 100-400 is lack of sync IS, but I got comfortable with high ISO. Thanks to the lens, 6400 on N43 is not as bad as thought, even without. Yeah, it's not bad. You could deliver straight out of camera 6400 if you have good light. No problem. And hello from New York. Pucho Web Solutions. Planning to replace my Lumix GH2 and G85 or Olympus EM5 to keep my camera body small and light. Thank you for your informative video. Oh, there's a really good deal on the G95. $697 with the 12 to 60 lens. That's a killer deal. And this is the OLED version. So the EVF has the OLED display, not the LCD display. So I have it on my deals page for Amazon, but if you go to Amazon, uh, the G95 is $697. And it's marginally a better camera than the G85 was, especially because of the OLED EVF, right? That would be the way to go. Um, and then the other option you have there is the EM5. I would go for the EM5 Mark II. The only criticism I have of the EM5 Mark II is there is shutter shock. So if your shutter speed is below like 1/350th of a second, whatever that number is somewhere around there, you might experience shutter shock with mechanical shutter, even if you have anti-shock shutter turned on, which is weird because you should not get shutter shock on the back end of that exposure. Uh, so I shoot in silent shutter mostly with the EM5 Mark II. With all my cameras, I shoot silent shutter. Uh, but there are times when you do need to shoot mechanical shutter, and that's when you need to be careful with the EM5 Mark II. But you can get those for like $400, right? But the G95 with lens for 700, that's a killer deal, and it's a relatively modern camera, right? I think it has the 20 megapixel sensor. Don't quote me on that one, but I think it does. And let's see. And yeah, I shot a little event with my EM5 Mark II yesterday. It was a treat. Needed a fill flash though. Yep. Yeah, I love my EM5 Mark II. I really wanted to take it last night for the light painting and photography, but uh, like I said, I was worried about the battery life because I wasn't sure how long I would have the camera on and explode. Because with live comp, you leave the camera on for 5, 10 minutes, right? Sometimes. And Natura says, really, the killer was the Fuji XM5. I'm tired of waiting for Panasonic to come out with something and also redefining the price point of small cameras from 800 GX85 to 1500 to S9. I need video. That is definitely an area that, and thank you for letting me know what it was. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of buzz about the XM5. For me personally, the deal breaker is the the EVF, not having an EVF. But other than that, it looks like a great camera. For me, on the Fuji side, I ended up buying an XH2, uh, but I'm considering getting the what is it? The XT50, because the XH2 is just a little bit too big and heavy. And I think at the time that I bought it, it was the only 40 megapixel sensor that Fuji had. So I bought it pretty early on. The only thing that holds me back from buying an XT50 is I don't use the XH2 at all. I use it for video, which I agree with you. The video is really amazing in the Fuji cameras. If you look at my last two videos, review videos, or whatever videos I've made recently, those are all with the XH2, and I think I use the Eterna profile. And very easy to grade. I just add a touch of contrast, maybe saturation from the Eterna profile, and I'm extremely happy with the video quality. I shoot in 4K at 30 or 60p, I can't remember. Typically, I shoot at 60, and yeah, I got no complaints. And I haven't updated the firmware on the XH2 since I got it, so I'm not having autofocus problems that people have been talking about. Supposedly, the latest one is better. I don't know. I'm still like on firmware 1.5 or something. Like I'm way behind. But the camera works the as needed. So well, anyway, in reference to this, the GX85 uh, does have a viewfinder, and it's an old camera. Like that is one of the problems, right? They need to update that thing. Maybe a GX 9 Mark II, a GX 85 Mark II. Well, it'd have to be a GX 9 Mark II. That would be awesome. A lot of Panasonic buyers would just drool over that. But I don't know. I don't know if there's really a market for it, right? Obviously, Fuji thinks so because they got the X100 and now this XM5. Uh, and the S9, yeah, that's actually a really good video camera, but no EVF. So I think if you want video and you don't care about the EVF like the XM5, the S9 is a good option. The downside to the S9 is, they don't have small lenses for it to complement the body. They just came out with a couple, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future. But as of today, what do we got? Like that new Pancake 18 to 40 or whatever it is, and then we got or maybe it's a 20 to 40. But yeah, they have a new Pancake zoom, and that's it. Otherwise, you're stuck with this monster 20 to 60, the 51.8s, and they're all fabulous lenses. And I'm still gassing for a Panasonic S1R so I can get back into the L mount system because I love the lenses for the L mount system. Uh, and the sensor in the S1R is, I think, exceptional. But uh, but I totally get you're looking for something smaller, and the XM5 is certainly that. It's very small, compact. I mean, I think it's just a hair smaller than a Pen F because it doesn't have an EVF, but still, it's smaller. It's well made. Fuji's always made, aside from their XT200 series, their plastic ones. I didn't like those so much, but all of their other cameras are all metal body, like XT50, XT5, of course. Now the XM5, that looks to be like an all metal body. They're doing such a great job, and that is a killer camera at a killer price. And that 20 megapixel sensor, I used to have the XT30. That 20 megapixel sensor is outstanding. It is outstanding. And the other thing that holds me back from an XT50 is I can get an XT3 with the 26 megapixel sensor. And that's a relatively small camera. That's before, it's a little bigger than, say, the XT1, right? But uh, the X-T3 is an outstanding camera, but it's like only a few $100 less than buying, say, a used X-T50. So I'm kinda torn personally, I'm kinda torn between those 2 cameras on the Fuji side because I do wanna get a smaller Fuji camera. I'm a little frustrated with the X-H2 because of the size. I thought I would get used to it, but because it's not like a primary camera and a camera that I use all the time, it's gonna be a camera that I just wanna throw in. And if I want the Fuji colors and the Fuji look and use the Fuji lenses, because Fuji makes excellent lenses as well, and they have a lot of pancake lenses. Man, there would be nothing better than to put like that Fuji 27 or 28 millimeter on an XT3 or an XM5 or the XT50, right? They're little pancake lenses. Nothing would make me happier. And then I would have a lot of modern features. I would have a higher resolution. I would have outstanding video capability. And then the colors, I'm a little bit, I got mixed feelings on the colors, but I can fix those in post processing. With the Olympus and Panasonic for that matter, when I had my S1R, uh, I was very happy with the colors practically straight out of camera. They required very little tweaking, maybe a white balance adjustment, and that was it. With Fuji, I'm finding I have to experiment with different color profiles uh, before I get an image that I like. Now, I mentioned that I like the Eterna profile, and it only requires a little bit of tweaking and post processing, but that's for video. I don't like the Eterna profile in photos for whatever reason. They're just they're just too flat, you know? And so I'm struggling a bit, and that's part of the reason I don't use the Fuji X-H2 as much, is I just haven't gotten good at post-processing in the way that I like the look for my images. All of the film sims just don't work for me. Uh, but like I said, I haven't shot with it enough to do anything, but my initial impressions, uh, my initial impressions are I'm not crazy about the colors or any of the film simulations. So, and I just haven't taken the time to post process the images enough to where I like the colors that I'm getting, particularly on skin tones. I find them a little bit pastelly, um, except when I use the internal profile, but then it's the saturate. Anyway, I don't want to get into my Fuji processing. I need to work on that because it's a fabulous camera, the XH2. Takes terrific images, and the resolution and the detail that I get from that 40 megapixel sensor is fantastic. Better than 26, but it's not like you can see a big jump, but it's just little things. And I bought the best lenses I can for that camera. The 33 1.4 WR, the 23, the zoom I didn't buy the best, but it's really good. The 55 to 200 is an excellent mid-range zoom, and I got a couple other lenses for it. Um, but if I were to get an XT50, I would have to buy new lenses, right? I'd have to get the 35 f2, which is only 200 bucks. Nice, compact, excellent lens, and that's what I used on my XT30 was the 35 millimeter f2 and the XT30. The images from that camera were magic. Colors aside, uh, the images were really amazing. My problem with the XT30 is I did not like the handling of the camera. I didn't like the dials. Uh, and that's another tiny thing I have a problem with Fuji is that are the dials on it, but they're not deal breakers. Ultimately, it's about the image quality that I was getting from the Fuji. I found uh, you know, superior in every way to Micro Four Thirds, aside from the colors, but that's subjective. Um, but it was the overall workflow, handling, size of the camera, size of the lenses, and everything else that kind of because I bought an XH2. Maybe if I bought an XT3 instead, I'd be using it more. But the XM5 specifically is a deal breaker, the EVF. But if that's not a big deal, it looks like a great camera. And I would argue is probably a better choice than the S9. If you're a hybrid shooter, photography and video. If you only do video, and you can deal with the large lens, the big lenses for the S9. The S9 is I think would be better than the Fuji XM5. Um, but your problem, it looks like, with the S9 is the price point being 1,500. And not that that's not a good deal for a full frame video camera, but it's still $1,500, right? As opposed to, say, $800 for an XM5. But I could see people really loving the XM5 with the 35 f2, that 20, I think it's a 27 pancake, 2.8, and going out and just doing amazing things in a very compact, travel-friendly function, and having a modern camera. And like I said, that 20 megapixel sensor is really outstanding. Um, but yeah, okay, thanks, Nature. Okay, I see where you're coming from now. I totally get what you're saying. And if Micro Four Thirds, yeah, if they what can they do? They'd have to update the GX85, you know, like get a G9 Mark II, or update the Pen F, make that a Mark II. So that, yeah, for me, it would have to have the EVF. So that's why I mentioned those two cameras. The Pen F2 would be like a $1,500 to $2,000 camera though. But I think a GX9 Mark II, they could make that 1,000. So it would still be more than an MX5 or XM5, but I think it's gonna have more features. I think it would have more features than XM5. That would be an interesting competition. It'd be tough. And I think this is one of the reasons um, Olympus and Panasonic have not come out with more entry-level cameras, because the competition under $1,000 is crazy. It is insane. You look at Canon, Sony, not Nikon, not so much. They have the, that Model 30. I forget what it's called, a D30, or what is it? A Z30, right? The Z30, the Z50. Those are okay, but they're the Canon, um, the 50 model. What is that called? The Canon 50, the Canon 7, the Canon 10. I forget what the letter is in front of those numbers. But you know which cameras I'm talking about. Very compact, DSLR style mirrorless cameras. Um, it was the M50. Oh, the R. Sorry, the letter R. So the R50, the R7, the R10, right? These are really amazing little cameras, and they lack sort of the selection of lenses in APS-C format. But there's a lot of pancake full frame R lenses. The 26, I think it is, and they have a 35 that's pretty small, and a 50 that's pretty small. You could put those, that's the trinity right there, right? And the 16. They have a 16, I think a 20 something, a 35, and a 50. You are there. You have the trinity of primes for an APS-C camera, even though they're full frame R mounts. They're small lenses. And of course, the autofocus and the image quality and everything is, very competitive. Uh, for me, I don't like the plastic build quality of those cameras, but they're fine. Uh, I want to get a Canon, but then I can't think of anything I would shoot with it. It would just sit on the shelf, because honestly, APS-C sensors are not really that much better, if at all, than our Micro Four Thirds sensors in terms of image quality. Sure, when you start to go to the extremes, pushing the ISOs, pushing the dynamic range, when you start to go to the extremes, you will start to see differences between the two sensors. Same thing true for full frame, etc. But uh, these cameras, like you can get the R7, I'm sorry, the R10 on sale with lens for like $899, right? Very competitive with the XM5, and it has an EVF and fully articulating and great video, great autofocus, all of that. Uh, you can get the R50 for like $600 or $700 with lens, on sale, right? I'm talking about sale prices, but and that's a fabulous camera. It's got a couple of cripple hammer type things, like why is the hot shoe on R50 a dummy hot shoe? You have to use a Canon flash. You can't like use a generic flash. That makes no sense to me. Why Canon? But uh, but otherwise, fabulous camera. Now it's lacking a lot of the features that you would find in a Micro Four Thirds camera, right? Live comp, live bulb, high res shot mode. A lot of these things that they could put in an EM10 or an entry level, some other entry level camera. And plenty of other features, and all the reasons that I personally switched to Micro Four Thirds is that there was so many features in the camera, the various bracketing options, the focus stacking, a lot of things. I think a lot of these things are starting to trickle into their entry level cameras. I'm not as familiar with the Canon and Fuji and stuff. A lot of those features were not available 5, 10 years ago in their entry level cameras. Heck, my Canon M50, I had a Canon M50, didn't even have silent shutter. It's a mirrorless camera with no silent shutter. Uh, it's ridiculous. But the EM10 Mark II did have silent shutter, right? And these were two cameras that came out about the same time. Uh, but yeah, I totally get it. The XM5 would definitely be very attractive to a lot of people, and they would not be disappointed in that camera. I don't know how good the autofocus and all that is. It's fine for photography. For video, I don't know, but time will tell, right? As soon as it gets into people's hands for real, not just these initial launch reviews. Time will tell, right? But I totally understand. I wouldn't have jumped the gun and sold all my M43 gear, but I understand where you're coming from. Okay, lots of feedback on Rakuva, like this one from Jan. It's very good and it's free. And Robin says computers or cameras have become so computerized that it's better to rebuy than to make them upgradable other than software. Yeah, I agree. Um, and that's generally the consumer capitalist society that I live in, where throw away the old, buy new, throw away the old, buy new. And it's not just cameras; it's everything. It's everything. All the accessories, all the gear, everything we buy in our daily lives that we use. There's very little point in uh, trying to keep things going. It's sometimes it's better just to throw it out and get a new one. As with computers, I try to buy last year's model and let someone else take the hit for the latest and great. Yeah, computers are really bad at that, right? You can buy like an i9 1300 series for a lot less than an i9 1400 series, and the difference in performance is minimal. There might be like a 25-30% price difference, but there's probably like a 5% difference in performance. So it's definitely bang for the buck with computers buying last year's model. Unless there's some significant like when Apple went to the M1, unless there's some significant change in the technology of that computer, uh, another good example is like going from the NVIDIA GPUs, going from the 2 or 3,000 series to the 4,000 series. Definitely a big benefit going to the 4,000 series. But going from 2,000 to 3,000, not a big deal. You can get the 2,000 series, virtually the same performance, and save a bunch of money. This was a couple years ago. Now we're up to 4,000. Oops, thanks, Assembly. It would appear M43 has dumped small bodies despite having very complete ecosystem. Sad, but I have the feeling no one is listening. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I agree. I agree with the reason that you're moving from M43. And I'm sure a lot of people are, and you're not alone, right? A lot of people are leaving Micro Four Thirds because they're not seeing innovation in the small camera area. And I think a lot of us would buy the small cameras, even though they're not as competitive as, say, the other cameras that I mentioned from Canon and Fuji, but they got to make them, right? And I know I would buy one. I would buy one in a heartbeat and not even consider XM5 or Canon R50 because I know what the Micro Four Thirds system is as a whole. It is a smaller, compact system with great image quality. Like I said, I understand you push these sensors towards their extremes, not even extreme, just push them a little, and then you can start to see the differences between the different formats. But and I say that I feel like I say this every single stream, but if you take a bad picture with a camera, it's not the camera's fault. Okay. It's not. Okay. Let's see. Lots of inner chat here. Said I'd buy the GX9 Mark II tomorrow if it was built. I know, right? It would definitely be on my short list. And I'm thinking OM System will release an OM1X to keep up with their current strategy. I would be surprised if they release a big camera like that, like one with a built-in vertical grip. I would be surprised. And personally, I think it would be a mistake. I think it is in line with their current strategy, but it's not in line with the market for Micro Four Thirds. The Micro Four Thirds market is definitely they want the smaller, lighter camera system. Now, I think there's been, like Robin's talked about it, Ben has talked about it, and even Jimmy over at Red 35 has recently talked about the EM1X. And I think Jimmy and Ben are kind of on the same page. They thought it was a great camera and innovative, and Ben even thinks that it was successful. And Robin was more on the other side, saying that it really didn't. It failed, in his opinion. Basically, long story short. But I use the M1X. Not mine, but I've borrowed others, and I thought it was a fabulous camera. I mean, it's just too big, but I thought it was a great camera. It feels really good in the hand. The 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 execution of taking a picture was very smooth. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt that everything on that camera, well, fluid. That camera was very fluid. Like I could easily take images with that image with very little fuss. And the only challenge I had with that camera, other than, just the size, right, was the bird detect was linked to the tracking. And the tracking on OM system cameras, I don't know about the latest firmware, I haven't updated, or the OM1 Mark II, but tracking has always been a problem with OM systems and Olympus. You know, the bird detect and all of those features work great, but the tracking is a problem. So fortunately, on the EM1 Mark III, or I'm sorry, the OM1, OM1 Mark II, you don't have to link tracking and bird detect together. They're separate. But on the EM1X, they were linked. You had to use tracking with the bird detect, and that's where it kept tripping over itself. Because the tracking would go in a different direction and take the focus off the bird. When it had it, but then the tracking would pull it off of the bird. Now that's only I'm only complaining because I only got to use the camera for a short while. And I think with a little practice and getting a feel for the behavior of the tracking in that camera combined with its bird detect, I could still be very successful with bird photography with that camera. I certainly got many, many great shots. But yeah, I think this is where the EM1X really kind of fell down or stumbled us with that particular thing. But other than that, very, very fluid. And I I really, you know, I can get used ones now for like 600 bucks. It's really tempting just to have one because it is such a real it is I think it's a really great camera, but it's so outside of my wants in a camera. It doesn't have anything I well, the deal breaker for me is just the size. I would just never take it with me. It's not gonna fit in any of my messenger bags comfortably. Uh, I'd have to always remove the lens to put it in the bag. You know, just the little things, right? Anyway, EM1X was a great camera. So, but I'd be surprised if the OM1X came out for the same reasons because as much of a fanboy I am of the Olympus OM system cameras, and I'll buy anything that comes out from them practically, I did not buy the OM1X. Uh, and certainly when they released the camera, they tried to have it compete with full frame cameras. They're not going to convert any full frame camera people to Micro Four Thirds. It's just not going to happen. Um, not with that camera, right? Because people that have cameras that have the dual grip, the vertical grip built in, so they got big cameras already, they're fine with the size. And they're fine even probably with the 600 millimeter f4, that big honking $12,000, $14,000 lenses that they sell. So money and size are not a problem for these photographers, full frame photographers that are looking for cameras that have built-in grips. So what are they getting with the M1X that they don't already have with the system? If you take those variables out, they're getting lower image quality, basically, right? They're not getting any advantage. I don't think these full frame photographers that are using vertical grip cameras with 600 millimeter f4s care about money or size. They want the absolute best, and they're not going to get that compared when they compare their system with an EM1X, which I think EM1X was trying to compete with. Now, there's certainly a small, probably window or niche of people that the EM1X is perfect for, right? And I think that niche was a little bit too small for that camera to be successful in today's market, even. Uh, just my gut feeling, just my opinion, right? Doesn't mean anything. And Insurer says, why can't Panasonic make a small camera? We need great IBIS, full sensor readout, and phase detect. It shouldn't be hard. I'm absolutely baffled. It's so frustrating when, with the M43 has all the lenses. So let me think. I think they could easily put the all-in-one sensor in a Pen F, so a smaller body. And I know you're talking about Panasonic. So let's talk about Panasonic. They could probably put the G9, like if they came out with a G9 Mark II, or GX9 Mark II, I should say, you know, rangefinder style compact camera, I think they could put the 25 megapixel sensor in there with little with very little re-engineering, right? And the IBIS, they'd have to put the IBIS in there. They already have great IBIS in the G9, good enough. They could even recycle that IBIS system. But if they had to re-engineer an IBIS system into a compact body, that would be a problem. The other problem is the heat issue, um, battery issue. I mean, miniaturizing or making things smaller, uh, there's some substantial re-engineering that has to go on. I know from a from a consumer point of view, like you and I, it seems like they have the 25 megapixel sensor, they have great IBIS, like all the things you're saying here. Why can't they just put that into a smaller body? But there's certainly there's a lot of constraints engineering wise in terms of heat and power. Primarily power, right? When you need more power to drive these higher megapixel sensors, the higher processing power that's required to get better IBIS, because relies on processing power as well. And that's why I think like a lot of the smaller, I don't know if the XM5 has IBIS in it or not, but a lot of compact cameras, they can't put IBIS in them because of the additional size that they would need, but also because of the additional power requirements they would need to run an IBIS system. Because it's not simply, uh, it's not like there's counterweights inside where it's all mechanical. IBIS is very processor dependent, right? And requires a lot of processing power, and it puts a serious strain on the battery. But all that said, it doesn't have to be as small as the XM5, right? It can be a little bigger, but just compact, right? Like just put a smaller grip on it and just enough to fit a little larger battery, and we're good to go. And you might have to cripple the record times for video because of heat, and you may have to use the older IBIS system instead of the newer ones. But I don't know. I get why re-engineering for a smaller camera would be difficult, but they've had years and years to do this, and they don't want to. And like I said, I think it's because the competition, like the Canon R10, no IBIS, right? Canon R10. And that's why, because it's not easy to put IBIS into a camera and have it work well without putting a serious drain on all the other components that go into making the camera or taking an image. Um, I think the R7 has IBIS, but it's substantially more expensive too, right? Good $600-700 more than the R10. And the R50 doesn't have IBIS. The R8 doesn't have IBIS. A lot of the cameras that have the small, tiny batteries to make them compact don't have IBIS in them. Uh, and I'm just using IBIS as an example. I'm not saying that uh, IBIS is the sole reason, right? But I'm using it as an example of why they they're not putting out small cameras that would be competitive. Because imagine releasing a micro four thirds camera without IBIS in today's market. That would be a mistake. I'd still buy one. IBIS is not critical to my photography because I'm usually on a tripod or I use a fast enough shutter speed. IBIS is not a big deal to me, but I think market-wise, it would be a problem. Who would buy a Micro Four Thirds without IBIS when they're known for IBIS, image stabilization? Nobody. But yeah, like I said, they've had years to come out with a good compact rangefinder style compact camera like the XM5 that just came out, like the X100 that Fuji has. What's Olympus doing? What's Panasonic, OM Systems and Panasonic doing for the last 5 years, whenever the last rangefinder style came out? I mean, my Pen F is what, 2016? It's 8 years old. Yeah, they had the PL8, the PL9 since then. There might even be a PL10. And they had the EP7. But these are all contrast detect, 16 megapixels, except the EP7 is a 20. But the EP7, if it had phase detect on it and higher video specs, I think it has 4K. But, a little bit more there and a mic jack. EP7 will compete really well against the XM5. But they didn't sell it anywhere except in Japan. I can get one on eBay, but it's not like I'm going to go to my local camera store and go buy one. But the EP7, if they could update it to phase detect, like just put the OM5 sensor in there instead of the EM5 Mark II sensor. Put the OM5 sensor in there. I'm sorry, the Pen F sensor. They got the Pen F sensor in there now. Put the OM5 sensor in there with phase detect. I mean, they're essentially the same sensor. One has phase detect, one doesn't, but it's a different part number, right? But underneath the phase detect is the same exact sensor. There's really no difference between all of the 20 megapixel sensors out there. They're basically all the same, just they layer it with a PDAF autofocus versus, using contrast. So, yeah, I think I got the model number right. Let me just take a look. EP7. Yeah, this is the one. So imagine if they came out with this worldwide, like in the US, and this sold brand new for $750. All this needs is phase detect. That's all this needs, and you basically have an XM5 competitor. But they only sold this in Japan and, maybe Europe, but yeah, not here in the US. This would be an XM5 killer. All it needs is phase detect. So, because this has the color creative wheel here, which is really cool. Instead of film simulations, we have this color creator dial. And this looks to be very, very well made, you know? I've never held one in my hands, but I don't see anything wrong with this. I mean, this is if Olympus announced an EP7 Mark II with phase detect, I mean, if OM System did that, they would have a killer deal and sell it for $749. They would have a killer camera. Just my opinion. Come out with an EP7 Mark II. We don't even need a Pen F Mark II. I would buy a Pen F Mark II, but we know that's going to be $1,500. Come out with a EP7 Mark II. I would buy that in a heartbeat. But yeah, Nitra, I totally get where you're coming from. And Zoltan says, "Hi, Rob. I don't like the Fuji colors compared to limits, but that's just me." Yeah, I mean, it's all subjective. I can edit out the colors to the way I want if I took a little time with coming up with a profile. Because that's what I did with my LX100 Mark II. I was not crazy about the colors from the LX100 Mark II. So I came up with a profile that I found works pretty well for me. And let's see how the OM strategy works out. Even if they stop making cameras, my OM5 will work and be more fun. I can always go to a different company or system as a second body. I'm not loyal to brands. Yep. I mean, this has always been my argument. You can watch any stream whenever I make, you know, you can go back years. Um, if OM System stops making cameras, it's okay. I'll just buy something else, you know? I mean, I'll always buy an OM System camera first, but because I'm a fan, right? Not because it's necessarily the most competitive, best camera on the market. Hopefully it is, but if it's not, I would still buy it because I'm a big fan and I like the execution, the ergonomics, the workflow, and everything about OM Systems. Uh, partially because they did a great job, partially because now my brain is tuned into it, you know, so it's easy for me to adapt to any other camera they might release. It's just like my friend who just, you know, she shot Canon before. She wanted to upgrade her camera. I would tell her get something small and light like an OM1 with a 300 f4, and I'm not kidding, okay? But she ended up with an R5 Mark II and a 100 to 500 lens, and that is substantially bigger and heavier camera and way more expensive, you know. But she did that move because she likes Canon. She's familiar with the workflow, the menus, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and money, size, and weight, just like I was talking about earlier for full frame people, money, size, and weight were not an issue for her, right? I think size and weight should have been a stronger consideration because she's always tired of holding her camera. We go out all the time, and it's like she's like, "Oh, I need a tripod or whatever." Okay. Yeah, great Benzine. I was excited about the Fuji, but yeah, no EVF deal breaker. Yeah, just like me. And Mark says, just don't touch the firmware. Okay, I will not. I will not. It's not broken, so I won't fix it. The only thing that might intrigue me a tiny, tiny bit is that I think they have an extra film sim in the new firmware, but I'm not trading that for autofocus. That's working fine for me right now. And the camera has only glitched on me one time where I had to remove the battery and put it back in to get it working again. So I'm not, but that's what I've had that camera for well over a year now, and that's the only time. And Wayne says, third anniversary for OM Systems this month. I'm hoping for an OM5 Mark II. Innovation would be the OM1X I mentioned earlier. Do you think we'll see any new bodies, lenses? Gosh, we definitely need to see a new body. New lenses, I think we're good. It'd be nice if they came out with some 1.8 weather sealed lenses, f1.8 lenses that are weather sealed. But OM5 Mark II, it might be a little too soon for that because the OM5 Mark I just came out maybe a year ago, right? My guess is, oh, excuse me, the long night is catching up with me. Uh, my guess would be an OM10 to replace the M10 series, or what is it, baby? Or K&F Mark II. Those would be what? Those would be the ones. You want to go out? Are you hungry? Oh, that's what it is. All right. Yeah, so K&F2 or OM10. My guess would be between the two, it'd be an OM10, but I might be way off. Might be like an OM5 Mark II, like you said. Hey, what is it? Let's go. All right. If I don't put her away, she's gonna nag on me to go eat something until I get her something. Yep. Now she's banging on the door. I'll feed her here shortly after the stream. Well, it's lunchtime. That's why it's 12 o'clock. Oh my God, no wonder she's getting on me. Okay, let's see. One of the reasons why I did buy M43 was the weather sealing. There aren't a lot of APS-C full frame options with that kind of robustness and still being portable for hiking like the OM5. I can live with the less IQ, and you're not sacrificing much on IQ in my opinion, right? It's still producing tremendous images. Uh, I mean, it's amazing, right? And the OM5 is such a good camera, such a good camera. If I didn't have the M5 Mark III, I would definitely have an OM5 right now. But fortunately, I have the luxury of waiting for the Mark II if it can have USB-C. That's really the only thing it's lacking. But everything else, it's perfect. Oops. And the R6 Mark II I have has very good AF and tracking with the overpriced 100 to 500. Yeah, the 100 to 500 is kind of pricey for what it is. I mean, she's got really sharp images from it, but I feel like you can get sharp images from a Sigma at like 150 to 600 or whatever the Sigma version is, right? The 100 to 400 is amazing for less than half the cost. So I just don't trust Canon. They just don't seem to really want to support APS-C. I don't know. They got a lot of APS-C camera. They don't crank out lenses for it, but the RF lenses, the full frame lenses are fine for the most part. Because to make a lens smaller for APS-C there's not a big drop. They're already trying to make the full frame lenses as small as possible. So re-engineering for APS-C would be, I don't think it'd be money well spent for R&D, and the lenses wouldn't be that much smaller ultimately. So I think it's a smart strategy for Canon just to focus on full frame lenses and make them smaller rather than re-engineering for APS-C to make them just a little bit smaller. And I'm not sure if they would upgrade the Pan or OM10 lines, perhaps the Japanese market. That would suck. Man, if they release another camera and only in the Japanese market, I would be very upset. It's like when the EP7 came out. I was like, come on. That's such a nice little camera. My new Samsung AI5 takes good photos and videos. It's no surprise there aren't any new compact cameras around. I don't know what that is. Let me look that up. What is that? It's not really coming up here. Oh, your little cell phone, A05 or something like this. Yeah, I know, right? Um, yeah, cell phone cameras, they they do a great job. I don't like them, but for I think 99% of the people out there, cell phone does way better job than they need. And by the way, thanks for the review of the Terry-on camera bag. It's great. Fits my OM5, 12 to 45, 40. Oh, easily, yes. Perfect for a walk at the local duck pond. That is such a great bag. That Terry-on, for those of you that may not know, it's this bag. I can't take it with me. It looks huge in the camera, but it's not. It's not that big. It's really a good bag. Uh, but it was $25. I mean, you can buy it now for like 50. If you want this color, you have to spend like $90. You know, the prices just are all over the place. When it goes back down to $25, I will post something in the community page for everybody to get one. I posted a deal on this thing. Where is it? Oh, where did I put it? Oh, all right, I'll talk about it on Tuesday in my deal stream. There was another amazing deal on like a Raynox, uh, uh, what do you call it? Macro lens knockoff from Newer. Works great. I get 2x or better magnification, and the image quality is fantastic. It went on sale for like $23, and I posted it on my community page. I think only one person bought one. That's all I saw in my Amazon list is one person bought that lens for $23. And then when I do my review on it, people are going to go and look on Amazon, and now it's back up to $45. They're going to be like, man, I wish I had bought it at 23. And that thing doesn't go on sale that often. But this bag is another case. This went on sale for $25 for like a week. And a lot of people bought this, a lot. So I'm really happy about that. Everybody got a good deal on this thing. Uh, I have to be careful when I take this out to my photo club because there's 2 or 3 people in my photo club that bought one for $25. So if we put our bags down, we might pick up the wrong bag because we got the exact same one. And I was really lucky, man. I just can't believe the generosity of people. Somebody gave me this bag. This is the original Think Tank, which is what the Tarion is basically a carbon copy of. Of course, this is a $100 bag, 100 plus, I believe. And I would say it's maybe 10% better quality. There are some little touches here and there that make this, at least at first glance, a better bag than the Tarion. But it's certainly not 4 times better than the Tarion. I could buy 4 of these when it was on sale for $25 for the price of that one. And there's not 4 times difference. There's about a 10% difference on initial inspection. Over time, we'll see. Maybe this bag will only last 5 years and that bag will last 20 years. Okay? I don't know. Those are things I can't test or review for, right? Because I haven't had the bag 5 or 10 years. I haven't had either bag 5 or 10 years. But I've bought cheap bags in the past, and I'm still using them for 10 years. I've had this low pro bag for 10 years. Well, it wasn't really a cheap bag. It was $50 for a little bitty thing. And people have talked about their Dom key bags that they've used for decades, right? So clearly I cannot review things that are decades old. I've barely been shooting a decade myself or using any one thing for a decade. But for $25, man, you can't beat it. And thanks for the G95 advice, but the G95 mechanical design inspired the G9 body, which is too large for me. Oh, okay. While the G85 is inspired by the G7 body, which is a small. I thought they were the same size, the G95 and G85. I'm gonna let me just do a quick comparison. Where's my just type it in, camera. Let's go down G95. G85. G85. Oh, it is bigger. Look at that. 93 tall, so it's 4.5 millimeters taller and 2 millimeters wider. And how about on the top? .77, so it's 3 millimeters thicker. It is a bigger camera, substantially so. How about by weight? Okay, weight is about 30 grams. Okay. Well, what's the phrase I'm looking for? I stand corrected. The G95 is bigger than the G85, substantially so. I mean, I know when you look at the specs, you say, oh, 3 millimeters, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, 25 grams. That doesn't seem like a lot on paper. But when you actually hold the camera, it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Uh, when you're sensitive to size and weight, like I am, I'm very sensitive to size, weight, performance, that whole balance thing. And that G95 is substantially larger. Now, I would still buy it over the G85, especially at that price point, because the price justifies the little bit extra size and weight uh, and performance that you would get from the G95 over the G85. I think it's still worth it to get the G95, but if you're even more sensitive to size and weight than I am, like which I'm getting from your uh, comment, yeah, maybe try to wait for a little smaller camera, maybe an OM5, not or EM5 Mark II. EM5 Mark II is very small compared to that. Uh, if we go back, E-M5. Let's look at the Mark II. You can see it's substantially smaller, but oh, they got the specs here. So now we're talking about 6.7 millimeters, 8.5 millimeters difference in some dimensions, 39 millimeters in thickness, but that's because of this grip and this big, huge EVF, uh, and 37 grams there. So the weight difference again is not huge. Uh, I mean, 30 grams is not that big a deal actually, but the dimensions, there's no comparison. So maybe the EM5 Mark II, given given this given what you said earlier, might be the better choice over a G95. Although I think the G95 is a better camera than the EM5 Mark II. And Wayne says, I did buy a body this week. Olympus Air is supposed to be delivered today. Oh, that's interesting. I bought the Olympus Air back in day. What'd you pay for yours? I paid like 300, but it included the 14 to 42 easy zoom lens, kit lens. So that's not a bad deal. So I essentially paid less than $200 for my Air. I only used it a couple of times when I first got it, and I haven't touched it since. I think Chris Nichols from Petapixel suggested it, but OM should do a Kickstarter for a small camera like a Pen F. See how the market and buyers react, might work out. Yeah, I don't know how that whole Kickstarter business model works. Um, but it's essentially, yeah, users or buyers like me would uh, buy the camera in advance before they even made it. Is that how that works? So there's a huge trust issue. I would never do that personally. I would just wait. Even if I had to pay more, I would wait for the camera to come out. If they said, if they put a Kickstarter out for a Pen F Mark II, as badly as I want that camera, I'm not going to put down money before they even start designing it or making it personally. Um, because there's just no guarantees with that, right? Okay. So I don't know if that would be a good way to go personally, because even somebody like me would not buy it. There's probably a lot. I'm not alone, right? Even though we would love one. And then Gray Van C, I really went all in on the Canon M. Oh yeah, the M50. I had one. Didn't like it. Always a promise of more lenses to come. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, the few that they had were pretty decent, but yeah, they They should have stuck with the M system and the M mount and just made lenses for it. But given the shrinking market, I understand why they're consolidating and putting all their energy in full frame lenses, making them smaller, and throwing out a few APS-C bodies for price point, right? Basically to get people into the Canon system, and then long term, maybe they'll buy their full frame cameras later. But which is what my friend did, right? They had an APS-C Canon, they went to full frame Canon. And Natura says the S9 is very competent video camera, but without a hot shoe, EVF, and mechanical shutter on a slow reading sensor, it should not be so expensive. They say it's $1,500 fun camera. Wow. I agree. These are all complete. It's a mystery that they put like a cold shoe on it. Why not a hot shoe? Meaning able to use flash. But if you take away the mechanical shutter and put in a slow reading sensor, you can't use flash with the camera. So it's kind of backwards, right? Putting in a electronic only, putting in no mechanical shutter forgoes the need for a hot shoe because you can't use flash anyway. But if they had put a mechanical shutter in, I guarantee they would have put a real hot shoe in there. But to put the mechanical shutter in, they would have had to make the camera a little bit bigger to put the shutter mechanism in. So one thing leads to another, and this sort of goes back to my comment about miniaturizing and re-engineering things to make them smaller. There's a lot of layers there that you have to go through to make a smaller camera, and too many compromises here for a hybrid shooter like me, where I probably do 90% photography, maybe 95% photography. This camera, as much as I really like it, too many compromises. You know, EVF being number one, number two, hot shoe, number three, slow reading sensor. But that's a distant three. But yeah, mechanical shutter and hot shoe. I like to use flash. Now there is a trend to use LED lighting a lot more. So the need for flash has been mitigated somewhat because they have really powerful compact LED lights, but it's no substitute for flash. Flash is by far more portable because of the power source. You can use a little lithium ion battery, right, in a flash and shoot all day long on that, you know, give or take. But you can shoot a long time with a little lithium ion battery versus an LED light. If you want to use that for photography, generally you need to be in a studio plugged in to get enough light. The battery powered LEDs, they're not going to work outdoors other than just some very minor fill light. You know, 100-watt LED is not going to quite cut it outdoors. It can be done cloudy days at night, sure, but on the average shoot, portrait shoot, you're not shooting at night. You're shooting like uh, you know, daytime, golden hour, these kind of times where there's plenty of natural light, and blending in a 100-watt LED is tough. It's generally not enough light because you're pushing them through modifiers. I get it. If you watch Marcus Picks, you think, you know, you can get away with anything. Marcus Picks is really amazing. He makes everything seem so great, you know. The things that he likes, he makes seem great. And he's certainly everything he's done is absolutely true. The kind of results that he'll use two hard lights and get a nice image of his beautiful wife. Uh, and I totally respect that. He does great work. And it's frustrating when I get comments about using hard light and people say, who uses hard light? Nobody wants a soft image. Nobody wants, I mean, nobody wants hard light. You know, faces get shiny and images look. Anyway, I got a comment last week where somebody was very, very critical of hard light. They only, on camera flash. And I respect everyone's opinion. I don't want to minimize what anyone's opinion because some people feel very strongly about whatever it is they're saying. So, but for me, for me and people like Marcus Pix, hard light is great. I love hard light, you know. But anyway, back to what Natura was saying. Yeah, I know because the Canon R8 has everything that the Panasonic S9 has, plus mechanical shutter, plus EVF, plus a real hot shoe, right? That's everything. And it's not that much difference in size in practice, right? And they got compact lenses, the 16, the 26, the 35, the 50, all nice little compact lenses for the Canon R8. The Canon R8 is really tempting, and you can buy those for $1,100, $1,200 on sale right now all the time. I know for Black Friday, we'll probably see them for $1,000. And it's a phenomenal camera, the Canon R8, very comfortable to hold, great autofocus, et cetera, et cetera. This is where the S9 is going to have a problem. And I get it. They tried to make it kind of a Leica fun. It's got a very Leica feel to it. It really does. Uh, from the images that I've never held one, but yeah, that needs to be like a $1,200 camera with all the compromises that it has. Even at 1,200, I wouldn't buy one because it's just too many compromises as a photographer that likes to use flash. So um, if I was primarily a video person, I'd be fine with the S9. And when I need light, I'd use LED because I'm doing both photos and video. But yeah, I didn't think about it. I don't know, 1,500 is not that much though for a full frame camera in overall terms. But when you look at the competition, like I just mentioned, the R8, no IBIS in the R8, I get it. But uh, use a gimbal, put it on a tripod, whatever, fluid head, right? And David says the M1X, yeah. David was the one who let me borrow his EM1X for a couple weeks, and like I said, I was really impressed by it overall. It says I figured if my 150 to 600 needs a tripod and a gimbal, my heavy old EM1X can live on it too. Yep, I love to have the M1X with my pancakes. Seriously, I guess. I mean, I get it. We all like different things. The advantage of the OM1X is the big lens shooter, MFT 150 to 400 versus full frame equivalent, sports and wildlife, f1.2 lens, etc. No, yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a size weight advantage to the EM1X when you combine it with the lenses and the reach that you can get with the Micro Four Thirds system. My argument is full frame shooters, size, weight, price are not an issue. If you take that away, what are you left with, right? On Micro Four Thirds, nothing. You're left with the sensor that has less performance than the full frame sensor. Maybe the frames per second is better on the Micro Four Thirds as well, because we can do 50 to 100 frames a second on the OM1. An OM1X would certainly have extremely fast shutter speeds, but in practice, how many people really need to be at 50, 100 frames per second? I don't know. I'm not in that market. I'm just throwing it out there that that would be probably the only key advantage to the OM1X, say, over a full frame system, taking out size and weight. Now, if the target market is the consumer, I don't know too many consumers that really want, uh, vertical grip camera. It's just too big for most consumers. And then we're back to the niche, which OM Systems overall is a niche camera company now. But this is niche. This is niche on top of niche, right? Uh, so I would, only very few people would really appreciate what the OM1X offers in the general market, I think. Not enough people would really appreciate or want or need what the OM1X would be able to do. That's just my concern. If they release an OM1X, I don't think there's just enough buyers for it. Um, yeah. And Robert Volk, good evening from Prague. Good evening. Prague. Prague has probably got the most beautiful women I've ever seen whenever I'm watching movies and stuff. Of course, movies and TV, they always have the most beautiful people, but something about Prague. And Action Wildlife Sport Camera, and I don't have any lenses for AM1X because I use primes, and that is more of the long range zoom camera, but I bet it could handle portrait street for that, but too big for that. Um, it's really not too big for anything. You can use a big camera anywhere. I know the trend is to have like GR, whatever those little pocket GRs and X100s. Everybody likes to use those for street, but I think that's more of a hipster thing, right? When I go out and do street photography, yeah, it certainly helps to be discreet. You don't want to put up a big bazooka in somebody's face and take a picture, but I don't think the MX is that big. But yeah, it would be. All right, I'll take all that back. It would be a little awkward to walk around with an EM1X in the street and not be and try to be discreet at the same time, right? Uh, I don't think so. I think the EP7 does come with an English menu because they sell it in Europe as well, I believe. Action Wildlife. Oh, sorry. Click that one. Camera kit is 630 pounds in the UK on Amazon. Yeah, that's a fair price, you know? I mean, it's on the used market, it should be a lot less. Should be half that, but it's not. But if you're gonna buy brand new, that seems like a fair price. It's the used prices that piss me off with the EP7. I mean, seriously, if we go uh, Olympus EP7, I mean, you know, this is the used price. That is seriously too much money. This should be like a $300 camera used because you can get a Olympus EPL 10. You get an EPL 10 for that's too much for an EPL 10, but it's a couple $100 less, right? And this is a great camera. This one's in mint condition, only 678 on the shutter count. It's nowhere near as good as the EP7. I get that. This should be a $200 camera, and the EP7 should be a $300 or $400 camera. Just way too much on the used market. So you can get brand new for like $600, $700. That's a steal. And Stuart says, I actually had the EP7. I felt a little hollow. You could actually easily squeeze the grip and it would flex. It took great photos and videos, just no PDAF and a 3. Yeah, so if they added PDAF and a 3.5 millimeter jack and maybe re-engineered the skeleton, That wouldn't take much. That's not a huge thing to re-engineer the bones of the camera so it doesn't flex like you're talking about. They would have a killer camera on their hands, I think. Uh, but yeah, the EP7, you buying one makes complete sense to me after all our discussion here today and getting rid of it for all the things that we've talked about today, right? Um, no PDAF, and not to mention the flex and the grip. That would suck. Uh, it looks kind of all metal like the Pen F was, but if it's not, if it has the flex like you're talking about, that would feel hollow. All the same though, I think yeah, put PDAF and a jack in it and price it at 750 bucks new. That thing would fly off the shelf in my opinion. Hi Rob, love these chats. I don't know if an update to the Pen F keeping the solid metal would be affordable and profitable. Example, EM1X was 4,000 new. I got it for 800. Yeah, the Pen F would definitely be a niche camera. I doubt it's going to come out. It would just be too niche and too expensive. But it just defies all logic when something like an X100 sells for what it does on the used, on the used market because you can't get them new. Uh, but I don't think we can apply that logic to as a business. If we were OM Systems, we can't apply that same logic that we as consumers see, right? And that's why I don't think we'll ever see a Pen F2. It's been 2 years since the OM5 Mark II release, I believe. Okay. That time flies, man. If it's been 2 years, maybe a Mark III would be in order. It'd be still a little bit early. They should wait 3 years and throw in some extra tech, make it just a little better if they can. Like re-engineer the plate on the bottom and maybe bring it back to a metal body. I don't know. Yeah, Ellie's very smart. Okay, the Canon RF 150 to 100 to 500 is lighter than 300 f4, slower but very sharp. Okay, I didn't actually handle the 100 to 500, but um, I believe it's lighter. I could see that. They're really making the full frame lenses as small and light as they can. It's getting better and better. They'll never be as small. I mean, if you apply the same technology to a micro four thirds as you would full frame, micro four thirds is always going to be smaller. But uh, depending on the, zoom, super telephotos is kind of the exception. It's very, very difficult to make super telephoto lenses that are fast, like f4, f5.6 in that range, or f2.8 even. It's very hard to make those lenses smaller. It's just not possible, no matter what the image sensor is on the back. Take telescopes, for example. You just can't make a small telescope that has a bright aperture. Doesn't matter what size the sensor is. Telescopes are the size they are, you know. Yeah, the A15. Yep, I got it. I got it. Hey Rob, not a problem. Go ahead and release it only in Japan. We can still get in the US through Amazon and eBay. I don't know. It's they, a lot of people like me, if it's in the camera store, I'd rather go see it and buy it at the store than buy it through Amazon. I mean, how many things are available on Amazon from Japan that people actually buy versus what they would buy that I don't know. I'm getting into areas I have know nothing about. Ellie is beautiful and very smart dog. Thank you. I agree 100%. And Thomas is here. Hi, Thomas. That was a hilarious comment you made on one of my photos. Something about the moon tipping. That was great. Very late to the show. Just too glorious an autumn morning in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. Not to go shooting the landscape. I know. Beautiful morning here in this area where I am. I can see how tight a bond you have with Ellie, and she loves you, Rob. Love animals. Yeah, me too. And that reminds me, Roberto Di Donato and Jerry. Jerry, if you guys are not familiar with Roberto's channel, and I have a link on my community page. So go to my community page on my channel, and you'll see a link to Roberto if you're not familiar with him. But Jerry's been diagnosed with cancer a second time. 2 years ago he had it. They cut it out, but it's come back. So go over and send some best wishes and show your support if you can with Buy Me a Coffee over on his channel. If you can't find a link to his Buy Me a Coffee, I put one on my community page that links to his coffee. Just send a few bucks that way to help offset some of the costs, because Roberto's going to try and fix it again and help Jerry out and remove the cancer again. And it's not cheap, right? So even a couple bucks would be fine, just to show your support, not only emotionally but financially. Just $2, buy one. um, because it's not so much about the money itself, just the thought that you did take a couple bucks and a couple minutes out of your day and time and wallet to show your support. Because words are always wonderful and appreciated when people have kind words and show their support that way. But when you have a little skin in the game, even if it's like $1 or $2, um, it makes all the difference in the world and puts a lot more punch and meaning behind that. And not everyone can even spare $1. I get that. I'm not too far off that myself. Sparing $1 is tough sometimes. Uh, Not sparing $1, but I should say spending $1 or $2 can be a big deal, and it's okay. Then just say a few kind words of support. But even throwing in $1, $2 just really makes a big difference, I think. Um, anyway, so thought I'd bring that. I might bring him on next week after this. Jerry's due for surgery on Thursday, so I may bring Roberto on if he's willing to talk about it, how it went. And Zoltan says, I still use Panasonic's 20 liters camera lens compartment pro backpack. What I bought back many years ago, and now using it with Olympus gear, even though it's have big blue Panasonic logo. Say 20 liters is about the right size, because you're only going to take a backpack when you're taking a lot of gear. And for Micro Four Thirds, 20 liters between 18 and 20 is the perfect size, I think, for backpacking Micro Four Thirds. But that's cool. The Panasonic backpack. I would like to have an Olympus backpack. They had one for a little while. I purchased a bunch of Kickstarter projects, never an issue. Okay, yeah. Uh, I still think there'd be that sort of anxiety though among the general population that have never done it before, like myself, and that would definitely hinder, I think, the contributions to such a thing. But what do I know? Anyone who bought a Canon M should be cynical. It wasn't a terrible camera, it was just bad, but it wasn't so bad. So I was gifted a low pro Orion Trekker camera backpack, maybe 20-liter capacity a dozen years ago, still going strong. Yeah, those were the low pro makes good stuff. Marcus Pix is master of lighting, way over my head. Me too, man. Um, he is one of the most generous, gifted, talented people on YouTube, and I have so much respect for Marcus and his passion to help people and share information, even though I don't agree with him all the time. But I would say, 99.999% of what he does is from his heart and his passion to help people, and he's a people person, I think. And I just love Marcus Picks. I think he's one of the best things that have ever happened to YouTube. Uh, as far as YouTubers on that are on YouTube. God, I'm like saying YouTube over and over again. Marcus Picks is awesome. He's one of the greatest things that ever happened to YouTube. Um, whatever his motivations are, I think they're sincere and coming from his heart, but that doesn't take away from what he does for everyone here that are into photography and lighting and things like that. And the fact that he would share his life and his beautiful wife with all of us is it just shows, I think, the kind of person he is. But like I said, I don't know what his motivations are, but uh, I I think that's just what I think about him. I love the guy. Um, let's see. Alexa, show me the driveway. 1 second. Alexa, show me the front door. Somebody's at my door. Prague is fairy tales romantic. Alexa, stop. Oh, my Alexa froze up. It's not reliable. Like being in fairy tales romantic, Baroque city. I came from Neo, Renaissance, Budapest. All right, so let me take a break and go answer the door. So this is a good time. Smoke them if you got them, as they used to say, but not really. Don't smoke. I'll be right back. All right, hold on. Someone was detected at your front door. Okay, sorry about that. It's my mom, of course. Uh, Let me catch up on the chat here. Someone says, Pro Sport photogs are very full frame centric, though. The weight of a 12-kilo lens doesn't really matter much when you're on the edge of the sport field. They want the IQ, and yeah, exactly what we were talking about earlier. And the EP7 comes with support for 34 languages, including Japanese. Okay, great. Good to know. Great camera. And the EP7 is very plastic. Even pushing the buttons on the back made a ringing hollow sound. It looks great. I still liked it, but mine was defective. EPL9, EP10 had better build. Yeah, the EPL9 and 10, if it's anything like my EPL8, great build quality. Um, if the EP7 is plastic, that's a disappointment. They need to make it like the EPL10. Add 50 bucks to the price. It's okay. Maybe a limited edition Pen F. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I don't know if they get. I think the limited editions, though, they would only do those if they already have a successful Pen F2, then come out with a limited edition Pen F2, like different colors or whatever, maybe some extra feature, but uh, I don't think they could just come out with a limited edition Pen F and not have a full line, like have a full-on launch of a Pen F2. And Butters Gatto says, "Hi Rob, I'm late, but I finally have a Sunday morning open to watch a chat in real time for the first time. Awesome! So glad you could make it here. Always good to see new viewers." And Eric says, "Back had the dump run. That was fun. Nothing like carrying old appliances to the truck. Wow, break your back. I know. Oh, housework. Your mom, did she bring you soup? No, actually, she needed. My sister gave me something. I don't know what it is. Some kind of sauce. And my mom wanted some of the sauce, so that's all." And Pelicans only saw one, but a bad day of photography beats a good day at work. I know, right? But okay, I don't think if anyone had any other questions, let me know. I guess I should have wrapped it up when my mom came over because it's been a couple hours, 2.5 hours. These long streams, man, time just goes by so fast. Let me go with a few pictures because I didn't talk about all of these. There was another one, the light painting one, right? So this light painting, so it's the same truck. So there's one shot. Here's another shot. Here's another shot. So basically these three images right here, this one, and this one. So this is live composite, right? So I had a light bar and I just kind of spun it around this way. And this is, I used a flash, my Godox V1 to kind of pop a little bit of light onto the truck here and there, just to illuminate the truck and the ground around it. And then you can see the flash up in here, right? Different places that the live comp picked it up. And then this shot, I pointed the flash directly at the camera to get these little points of light, these starbursts uh, that I have up here. So these images individually all have a lot of defects, right? So I took these three images and combined them and created this image. So let me see if this is still, if it's still in Photoshop. I may have compressed it. Yeah, I already compressed it down to a single layer. But I combined all three images to create this one image here. So I got the starburst, I got the light bar, and then I got the truck pretty much illuminated all the way around and the ground illuminated. And I did a little bit of brushing down here in the corner to, because you could see like a tripod or somebody's foot over here. So I just brushed that out. And that's what I meant earlier when I was saying that I do use the AI time to time for tiny little things like that. Uh, so again, it was this image here, which had this terrible streak here. I don't know what this was. This was a flashlight or something. And then, there's these weird lines out here. And then this one had this, yeah, here's the leg and the foot that got into the scene. But I got rid of this. I used AI to kind of fix this corner. But I mainly used the truck, the lighting of the truck here. Also, I want you to notice that there's reflections of the flash in the windshield. And if you look at my final edited image, I fixed that as well using the brush tool, AI brush or whatever Photoshop calls it. I brushed it out. Well, actually, I probably brushed it out using. No, I think well, no, I did it anyway. I brushed out the little reflections that were here. I think I did it in Photoshop, say versus this one, which has these spots all over the windshield. And then the light bar one by itself came out pretty good, but I didn't like the shadows that I was getting here in the front. So again, in the final image, you can see I kind of brushed all of that out using one of the other images. So my point here to of showing you all of that is that a lot of times, you really need to learn how to do layering and blending of images, whether it's for exposure, like I did in my moonlight shot, or doing things like this. These kind of things, uh, require generally more powerful computers. Now, you don't have to use Photoshop. You can use a free software called GIMP to do these things. It's just the AI, the correction tools are a little bit on the non-existent or weak, and noise reduction, all of that. But doesn't matter. GIMP is a free tool that will do layering that will allow you to do what I saw here, what you just saw here me do with that. As well as the moonrise shot. And then just go to my Flickr page. Not Flickr. You can go to Flickr. I haven't posted them on Flickr. I have them on my Instagram right now. But on my Instagram, I've posted a bunch of the images from that day. I got 9 of them here. I got probably another 4 or 5 images I want to post from that day. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I only had time last night to edit these. I was, but I only spent 5-10 minutes on each one of these to edit from the original. And I did talk a little bit here about, blending the 3 images and stuff, but to actually see it here in the live stream, how I did it makes a big difference. Okay. And Rob, do you shoot film anymore, or did you? If so, what's the best nostalgic 80s, 90s film that still sells? I'm using Fuji 400, but I feel when I develop it will similar look to digital. Uh, well, I would watch, I think you do, watch Grainy Days and see the different films that he uses. But but I typically shoot black and white. And if I shoot color, I shoot Portra 400 or Portra 160. The Portra is a little bit pastel-y. Uh, and what's his name? Nick Carver uses Portra a lot in the videos that he's published. Those are the film stocks that I use, and I think they look great. But I'm primarily uh, the Kodak Gold. I think is still available. It's very popular, and I think will give you that more nostalgia, because Fuji's tend to have that greenish tint or something to it that a lot of people don't like. So I would try Kodak Gold or Portra. You know, it's a lot more expensive, right? The Portra. I would try those, but I'm not the best person to ask. I would just go to Grainy Days YouTube channel and look at some of the videos and what different types of films he uses. Because a lot of his images, I think, look very nostalgic and film like, as film should, right? And then John has some feedback here. The Fuji Superior Extra 400, but they don't make it anymore. And then the current Fuji 400 is allegedly rebadged Kodak Ultramax. Oh yeah, I've heard that. There's another channel. He doesn't really show. All right, I can't remember, so I won't bring it up. And Eric says, the reason I'm saying is like the latest Flickr photo of my daughter. Sure, the LUT looks nice, but I want authentic of that. I see. Um, yeah, I would try Kodak Gold. I don't know if that's still made anymore because like I said, I'm not really a film shooter. Yeah, they still sell it. And let's see. 3 rolls of 24 is $20. Yeah, $20 for 3 rolls. This is a Kodak Gold 3-pack. Hmm. I would try that. And there's an example, I guess. That looks good. I don't remember your daughter's picture, but these all look really good to me. And you know, part of that is the scanning. Who's scanning it? Are you scanning it yourself or someone else scanning it for you? That kind of thing. Okay. Um, all right. So I guess I'll wrap it up here. And I will be back on Tuesday for a shopping live stream. And I'll talk more about my new pages that I've added. I'm going to try and categorize those more and gear it, separate it a little bit more. But I put some new deals on there today. So definitely check out. Let me do my shameless plug. I think it's amazon.com/. I can't remember. Uh, this is my daily deals kind of picks. There's that. What else do I have to sell? My memberships, 99 cents a month. And I'm going to expand on what's available. I might do some private member only live streams and some other stuff. Right now, I'm just posting a few things on the community page for members, but I do want to expand and give you guys more for 99 cents. You know, I don't want to charge more than that, really. I might charge more if I want to do some one-on-one stuff, but for YouTube, 99 cents is more than enough, right? I mean, I hate this death by 1,000 cuts. $3 a month here, $6 a month there, $10 for this. It's just all these little subscription things are killing us. But a lot of you had asked for some way to support me on a regular basis, so I threw in a 99-cent membership, the cheapest one they had. And I get like 60 cents of that. YouTube takes like the other 30 or 40 cents. There's that. And then what else? Oh, buy me a coffee, right? You can always buy me a coffee to support, to support what I do here. But either way, click the like button, subscribe. That's the easiest, freest, cheapest way to support what I do here, and it's greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back on Tuesday. See you again soon.